Hello, welcome to Rock and Recovery. Today we got a couple special guests. It's Gary and Sheri, Laine and Seidler. Gary and Sheri, and they're going to tell us how they transformed their trauma into success. Here they are.
I am a semi-retired publisher. Just turned 82. I had a publishing company with my partner for over 40 years, and we were a self-help publisher out of Florida. And we were blessed to have published many of the groundbreaking books around addiction and mental health, and especially how addiction, chemical addiction, I should say, has affected the family and children. So I can certainly, speak to my knowledge and experience of addiction and how it affects an entire system. And Sheri, go ahead.
I have been in the Eastern medical arts for over 38 years now, almost, I guess it was 40 years. And I am a recovery specialist. Interestingly, I am not a recovering addict. I'm probably a recovering human. And
I think we all need to recover from. I think we all recover from something, some form of something.
Exactly. But I am a recovery specialist, and I do work with lots and lots and lots of addicts. And I am a Oriental medical practitioner. I have 2 books out on Oriental medicine. I'm a Chinese herbologist. I'm a nutritionist. I do clinical counseling. I've worked with people in meditation, their lifestyle. We talk about life and spirituality, and mostly just about moving chi and what that does for you and how we can set up a program to make you healthy.
So what does Eastern medical practitioner look like? What do you do exactly? Like what forms of medicine?
Acupuncture.
Okay.
Herbal medicine. We make herbal formulations for people to drink. We used to be, as a classically trained herbalist, we would take branches, barks, and flowers and would make a tincture decoction with them with water and boiling and then straining, and then you would drink the tea. Now they have it in granules or little pill form. So I design a perfect, wonderful plant formulation for your body and your constitution. And we look at you and then we decide what your constitution is. And we strive to balance you. We talk about life force, chi, which is electromagnetic energy that runs through all of us. And so we encourage you to get in touch with your chi, and we balance your chi with you and for you. And we use needles for that. That's what the magnetic needles are for, because they attract and change energy fields.
So not only are you basically a dietary, a holistic dietarian, you practice the
Chinese medicine.
Acupuncture. Yeah, Chinese medicine.
I do it all. I mean, you get
that
one
is cool.
shop. I always say from soup to nuts over here.
All right.
You come in and I help you balance yourself out, and we work out a program.
And you're a recovery specialist. What led you to get into being a recovery specialist?
The reason I became a recovery specialist was I was seeing so many drug addicts and alcoholics and people with incredible amounts of anxiety and stress. And everybody, like I said, I think if you're not addicted to a substance, maybe you're addicted to other pieces of your life that maybe aren't working. And so, I spent 30 years learning about clinical counseling because the needles bring up a lot of emotions. And then I was seeing more and more and more addicts. And then I thought, well, I think I know a lot about this because all of us are surrounded by addicts in our life.
Right.
And the people we love. And we all have some addictive characteristics anyway, no matter what you say. There are things you comfort yourself with. There are things that people fill a hole with, whether it's healthy or unhealthy. So it's about finding equilibrium and balance. But I said, I want to know more because I'm seeing all of these people. I want to make sure that I'm giving them 100% of everything I can. And so I went and I took a bunch of classes in a recovery institute. And so it's kind of like where you go to learn to work with a certain population of people that need a certain skill set. And I learn all the right things that they need.
Nice. And I know you guys are in France right now. How's that?
It's incredible.
In what regard?
I mean, I just the culture. I mean, how's that being
Well,
there?
well, it's really interesting. Sherry and I have been really fortunate in our lives to be able to travel a great deal. I've always been a big traveler since I was a kid. And I've emigrated twice in my life from Shanghai, where I was born, to which is a whole other story, to London. Was my first experience in school and so forth. And then my parents emigrated to Toronto. So I was there for 15 years, and that's where I got into the quote addictions mental health field. And then 8 years after that, I emigrated again, but this time by my own choosing for the first time to the United States with my partner to set up a publishing and conferencing company. So in terms of travel, I've lived in different parts of the world, and Sherry and I have been together now for 17,
Yeah, 17 plus
17 years. And we've traveled a great deal. Sherry has a daughter, a California girl who emigrated to, or actually went
Well,
to
she
school.
went to university in London, and she really basically never came back. She
Right.
stayed for
Wow.
a PhD, and she married a British guy, and that was it.
You're like,
She-
yeah, we're staying here. We're not coming back.
She's not coming back. She loves her mother, and she does visit me, and of course I go back. And I spent literally the last 30 years traveling back and forth to Europe,
Right.
2 and 3 and 4 times a year.
Wow.
So now, we have 4 grandchildren between us. 2 of them are in the UK, and then 2 of them grandchildren are from my son who lives in Miami half the year and Brazil half the year because his wife is from Brazil. So as you can see from that
Little dry
circumstance, we are always traveling. And like I said, we're just, blessed to be able to do what we do from anywhere.
And funny enough, I work in Mexico 5 months out of the year for 10 days each month at a beautiful clinic and spa that is Panchakarma. So it's Ayurvedic
Wow.
medicine. So we
Okay.
see people from all over the world, and then they have us come and meet or see them in their homes wherever we are in the world. So it's
Wow,
a
that's
really
amazing.
cool, yeah, it's amazing. And all of these people are on the path to better wellness and wholeness of spirit, body, and mind.
So I know, Gary, you struggled with a little bit of addiction yourself, and that led you to doing what you're doing, a family recovery specialist. You basically, how does the addiction affect family? How does like the son's addict behavior or addiction affect the people around him, especially his close family?
AOA.
Yes. So first, I'd like to, in terms of my own personal story, I struggled with addiction and addictive behaviors as well as substances as long as I can remember. As a kid growing up in the UK, 16, 17, 18, I drank too much. I drove occasionally when I'd been drinking. I wasn't using drugs at that time. Drugs really weren't a big thing in at that particular time, but definitely, drank more than I should have, more like a binge drinker. But really had no clue as a young man that I had any kind of problem. Everybody was drinking the same as me. I didn't realize, that I was in that category. But anyway, I applied for a job in Toronto. I was a newspaper reporter for many years, and that's when the drinking was at its highest for me. And that career came to an end, and I was looking for a job, and there was an ad in a Toronto newspaper. They were looking for an information officer for a government organization called the Alcoholism and Drug Addiction Research Foundation of Ontario. And as a high school dropout, I thought there's no way I can, successfully get that job. They wanted a PhD. Like I said, I barely, did high school. But something told me, something just felt like I needed to apply for this job. And I walk in for the interview, and the guy that interviews me for this big position had been a newspaper reporter in one of the tiny newspapers where I had worked. And
Wow.
he liked me, I liked him, and I got the job. And so that was the beginning, really, of my career of learning about alcoholism, addiction, behavioral addiction. And one of the first things that I learned is that addiction is a family disease. So there's no such thing as an alcoholic, isolated out there. There is an enormous effect on the spouse, on the children. And when I say family, I'm talking about, the work family,
Okay. So
yeah,
the people around you in your general circle.
everybody. I think there was a study at one point, I don't want to quote it inaccurately, but one alcoholic or one drug addict affects, something like 13 to 17 people,
Right.
in their communities. So my focus, in terms of publishing, which ultimately I moved to the US to do, was all about the effects of addiction on the family. And the most important story, I guess, to tell is that in 1982, I met a woman quite by chance again at an airport in Seattle. My bags didn't arrive, her bags didn't arrive. We were going to a conference, a national conference on alcoholism. We started talking, we shared a cab, and she told me about a PhD dissertation she had done called Adult Children of Alcoholics. And it resonated with me because I'd known a social worker in Toronto who worked with young kids who came from alcoholic homes. So, long story short, I said to her, "Well, that's kind of interesting. Let me take a look at the dissertation." I did, and it described the characteristics that 28 million US people had in common. Like they had
Wow.
at least one alcoholic parent, 28 million. I don't know what the number is today, but I'm sure it's not a whole lot different. And she described the characteristics that these later adult children of alcoholics had. And the three
Wow.
primary ones were don't talk, don't trust, and don't feel. And so we did that book, and we were a little, nothing publishing company in Miami. Nobody knew we existed. But that book, through 12-step Al-Anon meetings, specifically Al-Anon meetings, grew. It was a big, big grassroots movement.
Wow.
And that particular book hit #1 on the bestseller list, New York Times bestseller list, and was there for 2 years. And was the beginning of many, many, many books and conferences. And there weren't podcasts in those days, but, a ton of stuff on addiction and its effects on the family, particularly children.
Wow. And Sheri, how do you think Eastern medicine can help somebody in addiction today, help somebody recover from trauma, from all their past hurts, and mentally? How do you think that merge can help us today?
Well, the good thing about acupuncture or oriental medicine is it treats the root cause of the problem. And with a lot of addicts, there's a lot of spirit disturbance, right? We call it Shen in Chinese medicine. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to calm the spirit. I mean, there is a reason that they feel they need to use these substances. For some, endorphin, neurological, heart space, nervous anxieties. There's something that feeds them that they're not getting somewhere else. And in a lot of the times when they're using these substances, they're not even working that well anymore anyway. They just keep doing it because they're looking for some relief. And this is kind of the best ones, even though it's not really fixing the problem. Maybe when they're high, it fixes it. And after that, they're miserable again. And then they use more of the drug. So what Chinese medicine does is it moves energy. It calms the spirit.
So it gets everything in a line again?
Well, it realigns you. And then we can really look at what's happening, whether it's that you don't have enough yin or the yang is imbalanced, or diet or exercise or nutrition. Something's off in the body itself. And then we work to calm the spirit and also regulate all of the organs in the body so that we get you magnetic frequency vibrating at a much higher level. And you do that with the needles because they are magnetic, and so they conduct an electromagnetic current in somebody's body when the needles are inserted. So it changes the way the energy flows in your body.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really powerful and profound work, and it works.
You know,
Is it like a one time does it, or
not
you gotta
if
keep?
you're
It's
seriously-
just like a therapy or a recovery. You just gotta keep coming back, or
and you want to come back because you feel better.
okay.
And you know, what we have is what we call like a community acupuncture, where it's specifically for addicts. So you don't have to come into the office. You don't have to lay down on a table and get the whole 9 yards, although you're more than welcome to. But what you can do is just sit up in a chair in a circle of 10, 15, 20, 30 people and just get ear acupuncture. And there's a special treatment we have that's called Nogier's addiction therapy. Nogier is the man who invented it in France. So we use a specific point combination, and it immediately just calms the spirit. Helps with withdrawal, it helps with cravings, and it calms the spirit. So you sleep better, you think better, you're calmer, you're more relaxed, and you feel like you don't need to use as much.
Wow.
And then the cravings just miraculously start to fall away because you're doing more healthy and wonderful things, and your body is feeling better. And it works.
But you know, your question is so important in terms of, you know, does it work right away? Because of course it doesn't.
You feel better.
And you know, my experience with any form of treatment recovery is nothing works right away. You
I
know,
agree.
a 12-step meeting doesn't work the first time you go. You know,
Agreed.
it works if you keep going, right? And I think it's the same with acupuncture and so many other, you know, forms of treatment and therapy. You know, you have to really dedicate yourself to a particular recovery plan for it to be successful.
And I also wanted to say, as you're feeling better and as you're stronger, you don't need to come quite as much because you're plugging yourself into all the other lifestyle changes that we set up
Right.
to do. And we
Okay, so it's not just an acupuncture and see ya, poke you and forget you.
no,
You know.
This is a program.
See you again.
You're coming to set up. You're willing to change your life to change your body.
Absolutely.
They're
And you
like-
got to that. You got to be that way.
Well, I don't think there's any other way, honestly. At that point in an addict's life, it's kind of like it's do this or die, pretty much.
So it's basically if you keep coming back, it's just another program that you get out of it what you put into it.
It really
the more
is.
effort
And
and
when
the more
I-
energy you put
yeah.
into it, the more you'll get out.
And when I say do this or die, I don't mean do the acupuncture or die. I mean do a
Right.
program that takes care of yourself in a much better way so that you can be a better feeling human being.
Well, here's the thing about addicts, you know, we're all going to stop one way or another. It's either going to be through addiction recovery, it's going to be through a program, or it's going to be 6 feet under. So,
Yeah, exactly. That's
you
what I'm
know,
saying. So you choose. You choose what path you want to take when you decide to stop using.
Right.
Some people come and they get the acupuncture and they still use for a while, and we just keep the conversation alive. Okay, so you had to do this today, but maybe you're doing less of it. And
so
then,
what are some of the biggest, in your opinion, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about addiction and recovery just in general?
well, you go first and then I'll say.
Okay, I would say that, there was a huge shift when we realized that when we talk about addiction, that we're not just talking about chemical addiction.
Yes.
And when we started to realize 20 years ago or so that behavioral addiction was, every bit insidious. So, today I shouldn't use the word insidious. I don't believe that. But, whether it's sex addiction, porn addiction, workaholism, shopaholics, I mean,
Addicted to people.
Food addicts.
Food.
Kleptomaniacs.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, there's so much, there's so much. So I think, a wonderful trauma therapist who, I was very fortunate that I got to meet and work with and publish with and hire for conferences some of the, best thinking behavioral people. And what I've really learned is what Gabor Mate, who's like a leading trauma therapist, says is don't ask why the addiction, ask why the pain.
That's the root cause stuff we were talking about.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty deep question.
It's
Of course it's deep.
a very deep
It's
question,
very real.
and gets you to really look inward and realize most often that, you know, we had childhood traumas. You know, obviously we know what PTSD is, and, you know, guys who, veterans coming back, you know, got addicted to heroin, that most people can understand. But what I don't think we look at until we look at it is some of the, what they call small T trauma that caused anxiety, depression, you know, all kinds of, bullying, you know, all the kinds of things that may have happened with you or to you, you know, as a child growing up. And these become, issues that if you really want to get rid of the pain that causes you to continue with the, I mean, let's face it, drugs work. They make you feel better. You know, you
Yeah, they
feel,
just let you forgive the pain.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So, you know, they work until they don't work anymore.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
when they don't work anymore, you do have an opportunity today to really go back and look at what caused some of this trauma. And
Or
it's
the
difficult work. It's
it
difficult
is.
work.
The pain of the addiction becomes less than or more than the pain of being in recovery.
Correct.
But Jay, I think it's really important that you understand this. In the beginning, when one decides that they want to change their life, you're not necessarily ready, nor do you need to go into all that pain and trauma. What we
True.
want to do right now is just shift you cognitively, get
Okay.
you feeling better, get you feeling more balanced, get you perhaps eating better, sleeping better, communicating better, help you get your life back on track. And then maybe on the flip side of that, maybe when you have some time, the wind at your back, and you've got some time behind you in your recovery, then you start to peel back the layers of the onion. You know, so
Gotcha.
you don't have to, so don't let getting sober stop you and have you think that, oh my God, I can't face the pool of pain. I don't, no. You can put your toes in the water. And I often tell my patients, we can always go back to this way, right?
Right.
Let's try something different. And then maybe you don't need to go back this way as much, but if you need to, you can go back there.
Right.
But you
Yeah.
know, maybe you don't like it anymore when you think, oh, I want to go back. Maybe this way it does seem better.
Absolutely. And I would happen to agree. Why don't you just try it, you know? And I think, you know, one of my main reasons of doing this podcast is let everybody know that there's something out there that's better. You know, whatever works for you works for you. I don't judge and I don't care. I just want somebody to not go through the pains that I went through. And I think that's the most important thing is that pain, that trauma and that grief and everything else. We don't want other people to go through that because we've been through it and it sucks. And what would you say to the mom that might be trying to break that generational curse of abuse and neglect and trauma and drinking or drugs, you know, because that's trying to get out of that cycle so her kids don't suffer? What would you tell them?
I would say reach out and get support. Talk to some people. If you don't have people in your life that you can confine in and feel safe with, then you need to go to a group. Some group somewhere where you live is going to have something that calls you. If it's an alcoholic anonymous meeting, is it codependence meeting, if it's a pro-dependent meeting, if it's women in grief meeting, if it's women in abuse meetings, there is a million things. If you want to reach out, there are people there that will willingly help support you in your own awareness of next steps.
Yeah, you know, the only thing I would really add to that is we've come an awfully long way in terms of understanding addiction. And as you say, there are so many different ways in which you can begin your recovery. And, you know, whether you have money, whether you don't have money, I mean, not too many of us, you know, can spend $50,000, you know, for 30-day treatment. Those who can, great. But, you know, you can go to the park, you can meditate, you can read books.
Go to yoga class,
you know, you can,
class.
yeah, there's something.
Take a walk.
But
Yeah.
what I think is important is to recognize how far we've come. I mean, there was so much stigma around these things 20, 30, 40 years ago. I mean, you couldn't talk the way we're talking right now. because alcoholism or drug, it was whispered, if your neighbor had it. I mean, there was so much shame. And, not to say that there still isn't.
There still is, but it's becoming less, I think.
Much, much, much less. I mean, just to the
You
point
know.
we can talk about what we talk about so much
Right.
more openly.
And Sheri, in your experience, how does people store emotional pain? What does that look like as it comes out of somebody? I know for me, what it looks like, I get mean, and I mask and anger starts coming, and that's the DGAF attitude, the don't give a, attitude. And that's what happens. So what does that look like is that the same for everybody, or?
Well, it takes on so many characteristics. Okay, so it's the get angry, it's the wall yourself off, it's the get your gun out and shoot somebody because you don't like what they're saying. It's involuntary celibacy. It's not being able to open yourself to other people. It's game addiction. It's food addiction. It's absolutely checking out from reality. It's putting on a pair of headphones and not looking at people when they talk to you. It's being more and more abusive to the people around you. That's what that type of pain looks like. The other type of pain is being overly emotional, crying at the drop of a hat, having anxiety attacks, not being able to sleep, oversleeping, slovenly appearance, not exercising, not caring about what kind of food you put in your body, staying up late, getting up early, having too many cups of coffee, having supreme acne all over your face and picking your face, pulling out your eyelashes. I mean, the list is endless, okay? There are so many ways people show their pain.
Wow. I never knew it was such, that big of a broad of a spectrum.
I'm not even telling you all of the gory details on all the other stuff.
I don't want to know the gory details.
We didn't even talk about sex addiction, porn addiction. We didn't talk about
no, I'm good on all that too. I don't want to talk about that.
Okay, so there's a lot of ways people share. We call that slagging, right? They're just slagging. Yeah. We're not paying attention, and they're doing it right under your noses in most parts.
So isn't there a difference between healthy isolation and unhealthy isolation, though? Because I technically, I might be a loner sometimes, but I know when I'm starting to get in a mood, and I will just isolate myself from other people, not for my protection, but mainly for theirs, so I don't have to bleed all over them, so to speak.
I think healthy isolation is when you take yourself out of the realm of other people so that you can work on your own consciousness.
Yes.
So when you're in isolation, are you playing video games and killing people and relaxing? Or are you actively meditating and exercising, reading something that makes you happy, getting your feet in the earth, maybe doing some art, creative work, gardening, journaling, giving of yourself, doing service for others? Yeah. What kind of isolation are you doing? That's what I would say. Isolation.
Well, for me, I isolate on the beach in Florida.
Right. Lovely.
And that's where I've seen you before.
No, I just moved down here.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. I'm actually from Colorado and born and raised in Colorado most of my life. I just moved down here. I came down here in May or April for vacation. I'm like, that place is where I need to be. And I came down here 3 weeks later permanently.
Well, it called you.
It did.
Yeah, oftentimes that happens.
I mean, literally, I crossed the state line from Tennessee or Georgia to here, and I felt an overwhelming sense of calmness. I'm like, that's me. I'm moving. That's it.
It's great.
That's wonderful.
And then I had to go back to Colorado to get all my stuff. And just the drive there was so long and dreading. I'm like, I should just turn right back around and go right back. That's what I felt all 2,030 hours of driving to get there. I just wanted to go right back. I'm like, no. This is getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Plus, my mom lives down here, so it's kind of nice to reconnect with my mom after 20 years or 20 something years of not having a relationship with her. So,
wonderful.
There's that.
I'm
not going to tell her. I'm not going to tell her that. I don't want her head to get big. She's on a road trip,
You know what? You were listening to your intuition. You were doing what you felt an energetic shift to pull you, and now you're having a relationship that you probably couldn't have even imagined that you were going to have.
Yeah.
So, it's like you were led into a healing experience.
You found your happy place.
I did. I at 100% found my happy place. I mean, and there's something so healing about the ocean itself, the power of the waves. If you don't understand it, I will never be able to explain it, because just to see the power and then feel the power and know that it's all calm too, it's just crazy.
The water has ions that come off it that your body feels, and you're literally in a different molecular experience with the ions from the water. It like feeds a part of you that was needed nourishing.
Well, then I definitely needed the nourishing the ocean gave me, because I love it.
Yeah, that's great. I love to hear that. And that's just quantum physics. That's energy stuff. This isn't, when I first started out almost 40 years ago, there were just like all of us were thought of misfits, hippies, and weirdos. We would be talking about that kind of stuff, and they would go, "These people are out of their mind." And you can pretty much thank Deepak Chopra, because he brought this kind of thought to the forefront of Western thinking.
I like Deepak Chopra.
Yeah,
he's a great,
and he's been at it a long time. And he was right a lot about quantum physics. Because what we're finding today is that everybody walks into a place and feels an energy. No matter what you say,
Absolutely.
You feel it. Well, that's chi, and that's also quantum physics.
I think every single living thing has an amount of energy, and just the amount and how we perceive it is different across the board.
Yeah, how it magnetically affects your energy.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
That's life force.
Yeah, I would happen to agree with that. Even though I don't even know what I'm talking about, but I agree with that. I don't even know what I'm talking about 90% of the times on this recovery thing either. I just share my experiences and my lived experience, and it's just I don't know. I get a lot of those moments, and honestly, I let my higher power talk through me. So.
Well, that's beautiful. And sometimes that's the best way. So you don't need to have it all plotted out. Just show up.
No, I never plot anything out. If I did, I'd be friggin' I'd be running around in circles. I wouldn't know what to do, and I just wing it 90% of the time. And normally it turns out great. I just give it to God, as they say.
Let me just turn the question around to you.
Absolutely. Question me.
All right. How are you feeling in your recovery right now? And, you found a place that really resonates, and, I can feel it. I mean, you're feeling really like you're belonging right now. And how do you feel about what's going on in these United States of America right now? In terms of
your nervous system.
I'm not asking, to have a political conversation, but
I know.
But just
emotionally,
how are you?
It is depressed. It's not depressing. It's sad. The way we've got so much hate and divide over certain topics, over somebody expressing an opinion, is sad. I don't care if somebody doesn't affect me daily, and if I don't value their opinion, I'm not going to sit there and listen to it anyway. If I can't handle it, I'm not going to put myself in a position to sit there and listen to something that's going to anger me. And that's just a couple of years ago, I would have been glad to do it, and I would have been right there along with them, kill them, burn them down, whatever else. One side or the other, it doesn't matter. What matters is, that people have lives. Every life is important. I don't care who you are or what you're doing. If you're not affecting somebody and you're not hurting somebody and you're only affecting yourself, well, stop, because you deserve better too. But, it's your life, and you can do it the best way you can. That's all I can say. I am a child of God. And in that, I got this big, huge, after I got off drugs, I got this big, huge thing. I can choose now. I can choose who I interact with. I can choose whose opinions matter to me. I can choose who I conversate with. And doing that keeps me at a level spot. If I don't, sometimes I digress, and I do. and I feel bad about it, especially when it's brought to my attention. It's like, you're right. I did do that. But now it's so much easier to recognize and apologize for, when before I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have done that at all. I'd have been like, you're wrong. I'm right. And if you don't like it, there's the door, and that's not a conversation. That's not a debate. That's not any type of relationship, and you got to be open just as much as to give as you are to receive. If you shut yourself off for one way or another on either one of those, if you want to receive, that means you got to give back. If you want to give, that means you got to receive.
Mm-hmm.
And if everybody would look at their neighbor, I don't care if you like them or hate them. Hate takes too much energy. So if you like them or don't like them, it doesn't matter. You can still be courteous to them.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
that's what recovery has really given me, is the fact that I get to choose who I mess around with. I get to choose who I interact with, and I get to choose who's going to be in my life for the betterment of my life. Plain and simple.
I find myself saying the Serenity Prayer more often these days than ever before.
Absolutely. And I got it hanging on my wall right here. My cat was trying to paw at it. I'm like, no, not while I'm on camera.
That's great.
And my chip has the Serenity Prayer on it, and I always have it in my pocket and always rubbing my finger on it, so I can read it. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. So on that topic, how is all this over there affecting? How is what's going on in America affecting somewhere so far away as France?
Well, it's interesting because we're in France now. Been here about a month and a half. We spend a lot of time in London, so we know a little bit about the UK scene, and we know Europe in general. I would say this. I would say that most of Europe is going in a similar direction to the United States politically, not near the heat that we have in the United States, but certainly going in that direction. And it's not a direction that we feel very comfortable about. What we feel, though, here in France, at least where we are in France, which is a nice resort.
Well, it's a beach.
People seem to be a lot calmer. There doesn't seem to be the tension and the anxiety and the fear that we think is, the primary feelings in the U.S. right now.
And there are not as many people here either. It's a much quieter area.
Yeah, so it's quieter. But on the other hand, I'm talking to my daughter who lives in Australia this morning, and she said, how's it going on in France? I hear France is like in a real freaking mess politically. And I look at a headline, and
the government is dissolved.
The government's dissolved here. I mean, they've got, so it's not like these wonderful places don't have their own problems. Every country,
it's across the board.
It's across the board.
They handle them a little bit different, though, energetically here.
That's
people might not be quite as loud and quite as angry. They're a little bit more civilized to their neighbors.
Yes.
More genteel. They dress a little bit differently.
Right.
They're a little bit more.
They know what a protest is supposed to be.
Yes.
They know how to be kind and still be in a protest just to have a disagreement.
Yes. And they might think you're an idiot, but they're not going to say it out loud. They might give you a very dirty look, but they're not going to have a gun in their pocket and, blow your head off.
Right.
That's just the truth. It's a different kind of civility. And,
it's a different upbringing. So, and the generations now are, I respect the guy. I might not agree with every single topic he has, but that's okay. I don't need to, I just know that he was a guy with an opinion that matched most of my own, and that I could understand where he was coming from, because my Savior is Jesus Christ too. And, and all he got somebody to do was think a little bit different. Think for yourself. That's it. Think for yourself. Don't conform, but don't go causing havoc. Just come up with your own conclusions and your own opinions. That's all that matters.
Critical thinking.
Well, another
Yeah.
thing I want to say, Jay, that we really like about Europe, and I think if more Americans did this, it would actually not be such a terrible thing. At 3:00, every single one of the stores close. Everything closes at 3. There are a few cafes that are open for tea. They do not feed you, and nothing opens up again until 7. So everybody goes home and takes a little night-night. They take a nap, they exercise, they relax for 4 hours in the middle of the day. Can you
Always
imagine?
They
have.
spend time with family.
Or in their beds.
Yeah.
Resting. And they don't care whether you like it or not. They're out.
And,
Go
I was raised in a smaller town in Colorado, kind of close to Boulder, Colorado. And most of my I got a big Italian family. And I'll tell you what, I think I was related to probably about half or 3/4 of the town when I was growing up. I know I couldn't date a girl in my town because she might be a cousin,
Yeah, right.
and that's a fact. And so if I did something in school, like got in trouble,
Everybody knew.
and I was on my way to my grandpa's house, the whole block was, JJ, what'd you do? JJ, you're in trouble. You did it this time. I'm like, what did I do? And then I had to do some soul searching. I'm like, oh shit, what does grandpa know and what doesn't he know? I am in trouble. If they're telling me I'm in trouble, I am really in trouble. Not to mention my whole family delivered the mail in this town. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's very different. So, people are it's a different gentile.
Genteel,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a different,
And,
very
I think
different
some of those
energy.
things, now that doesn't happen in London. They don't close up shops from 3 to 7. Mostly just in the more of the European towns.
The more the European,
And,
smaller European towns.
Smaller European town. And Gary was raised by a European family. So this really appeals to his sense of roots as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if you have anybody listening out there that is struggling or maybe in recovery and wants to maybe think about this acupuncture thing, how would they start that? How do they get a hold of you? Any information?
Well, they can go to my website, www.balancederqi.com. I have a book called Living the Energy Connection, but really you can just go online and put acupuncture and addiction. Acupuncturists in my area, they can ask their chiropractors, they can ask anybody at their yoga class if they know an acupuncturist. They can see if there's an acupuncture college in their area. Sometimes the interns treat people for a much reduced rate. Again, just start having conversations with people.
But there are very few communities anywhere in the United States that don't now have acupuncture available.
Oh yeah, it's kind of like a yoga studio or a Pilates studio. They're around. Believe me, they've come rightfully so full circle now, and it's a good thing. It's just part of the whole integrative wellness world.
Well, I know we started late, and I know this was very unprepared on my part, but I think this was a great podcast myself. I appreciate you both being up here and sticking around and letting me know that the link's not working. I'm like, oh shit,
We're only talking, don't worry.
So I appreciate that, and I hope to hear more from you guys in the future, and I hope you have a great time over there in France. And no matter what's going on in this world, just stay true to yourselves and love thy neighbor. That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
Beautiful. Pleasure being with you.
Be well. Take good care of yourself.
Thank you. And you too. You guys look like you're doing a great. So I'm not going to say nothing because you guys look like you are freaking living the life right now. So,
Gary says, he says, we're just two bozos on the bus looking for a cup of coffee.
You know what? I always wanted to grow up to be a beach bum, and now I'm living on the beach. So I'm fulfilling my life's wish,
All
right. I love you guys. You guys take care.
Bye-bye.